Number 10. Tuatha Dé Danann. Ireland is full of incredible Neolithic sites, one of which is Newgrange, an immense ancient passage tomb. But even more fascinatingly, the tomb is beautifully and perfectly illuminated on the winter solstice, when the cold rising sun lines up perfectly with a roof box just above the entrance. Ireland, famously, was colonized and inhabited by the Celts, but it is not truly known who or what culture inhabited the Emerald Isle before the Celts arrived. But the Celts themselves had an idea. They spoke of the Tuatha Dé Danann, otherworldly gods and goddesses that drift between our world and the other. The Celts would tell that Newgrange had been built for a Tuatha Dé king, someone with the majesty, elegance, and power of the stars. Could it be that this ancient tale actually belies a fascinating truth? Could the pre-Celtic Irish have had contact with extraterrestrials? And could Newgrange have been built for these same extraterrestrials? The patterns carved in the stones nearby are reminiscent of crop circles, and the whole layout of Newgrange does somewhat appear like a primitive landing pad. Or perhaps ancient people just had a better understanding of the stars than we realize. Number 9. Cucuteni-Trypillia. The Cucuteni-Trypillia are a fascinating culture who established themselves in southeast Europe, what we now consider the Balkans. The Cucuteni were present from the Neolithic to the Chalcolithic, from about 5500 BCE to 2750 BCE. But what makes the Cucuteni truly fascinating, beyond their intriguing art and pottery and other discoveries, was the discovery of their towns, cities more like. The Cucuteni had the most dense settlements in all of Neolithic Europe, the largest of which having had some 3,000 or more structures and likely housed between 20 and 45,000 people. Plenty of other Neolithic European cultures had permanent dwellings. Plenty of other cultures had agriculture. So what made the Cucuteni special? It seems an innovative way of dealing with detritus, garbage, and mold. The Cucuteni, once a year, would gather all of their personal objects, clean their homes of their belongings, and burn their entire city to the ground. This destroyed any black mold that was festering, cleaned up the city of garbage, and allowed a new, fresh start. However, the drastic and seemingly counterintuitive nature of this tradition has caused some to wonder if the Cucuteni had not received this knowledge from somewhere else, perhaps kind strangers wandering the stars. Number 8. Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan was one of the largest cities in pre-contact America, and was truly an incredibly impressive sight. The entire city was situated on top of Lake Texcoco, with built-up docks and floating farms making up the near entirety of the city. The incredible complexity and fascinating techniques and technologies used to accomplish such an incredible city stunned the first Europeans to see it. The original Mexico wanderers were told through a vision of an eagle with a snake in its beak perched upon a cactus to settle here in this small, swampy island in Lake Texcoco. And there they would turn it into a hub of culture and power in Mesoamerica. But the shocking complexity and effectiveness of the great city and the technology that allowed it to flourish shocked early colonizers. The indigenous people of the Americas had many complex technologies and many large constructions and settlements. However, this confused small-minded 18th century European anthropologists, who began the idea that there must have been some sort of external contact and aid that allowed the Aztecs of the Triple Alliance to build such impressive structures. While there are stories in Aztec mythology of star people, and many stories which have encouraged the theory that they may have had some sort of contact with the extraterrestrial, no evidence indicating the impressive and complex technologies developed in the Americas was ever connected to extraterrestrials. They may be simply intelligent people with generations of education, development, and expertise. Number 7. Sumeria. The Sumerians are a fascinating culture and one of the earliest known to settle in the Indus Valley, the so-called cradle of civilization. The Sumerians are thought to potentially be West Asians who walked from the Hindu Kush or Ganges Plateau, or fishermen from the eastern Arabian littorals, or perhaps they were even from North Africa. Wherever they came from, the Sumerians would make numerous incredible technological advancements. They invented the plow, irrigation, saws, other tools, and much much more. This more advanced agriculture also allowed the Sumerians to develop a food surplus, which led to the first concepts of trade and taxation. Writing was then developed to record trade and storage records, and arithmetic, geometry, and commercial production would grow and flourish into being. There are a vast number of complex reasons and variables that led to the Sumerians achieving all of these discoveries first. Or, you know, maybe it was aliens who taught them how to write. Number 6. Seahenge. Seahenge was first discovered in 1998 when beachcombers discovered the strange stump at the site's center. Once exhumed, the whole site would be unveiled. A ring of tall oak trunks had been sunk in a circle, with a great upturned oak tree stump in the center. Seahenge was certainly a religious site of great importance, but its exact purpose is unknown. Every tree in the henge was felled in 2049 BCE, giving us a stunningly precise view into when this construction was built. The construction took a serious, concerted effort and used some 50 bronze axes. These axes would have been incredibly rare and incredibly valuable at the time, indicating, again, the great importance of this site. In recent years, the past century or so, the coast of England has had many strange UFO and USO sightings. Could it be this Seahenge was a place of contact and communication between ancient humans and alien life?
Number 5, the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire, which lasted from the late 13th century to the early 20th century, engaged in various forms of slavery throughout its existence. The Ottomans inherited and adapted certain slave-holding practices from early Islamic societies and also contributed to the development of unique systems of slavery. The Mamluks were slave soldiers who played a significant role in various Islamic empires, including the Ottoman Empire. Mamluks were typically young boys, often from non-Muslim territories, where they were enslaved, converted to Islam, and trained for military services. The Ottomans employed eunuchs, particularly white eunuchs, who were usually from European descent, in the imperial harem and administrative roles, as black eunuchs, often of African origins, were also significant presence in the Ottoman Empire, particularly as well in the harem. The Ottomans engaged in the trans-Saharan and trans-Indian Ocean slave trades, acquiring slaves from various regions including East Africa. The Ottoman Empire began to take steps forward towards the abolition of slavery in the 19th century, influenced by the internal reform movements and external pressures. Various edicts and legal reforms were enacted to limit and eventually end slavery. Number 4, the Byzantine Empire. For the Byzantine Empire, they too also engaged in the trade of slavery. However, they had slaves for different industries, from domestic, industrial, military, agriculture, and so on. Similar to the other historical empires, the Byzantine Empire employed eunuchs in various capacities. Eunuchs were often castrated and served as guards, administrators, and court officials. Their lack of family ties was also seen as an assurance of loyalty as well, and the Byzantine Empire also engaged in the slave trade, acquiring slaves from various means including war, piracy, and commerce. Slaves were obtained from regions around the Mediterranean and beyond. The Byzantine legal system had specific laws regulating slavery. These laws determined the rights of slave owners and the legal status of slaves and the penalties for mistreatments. The spread of Christianity in the Byzantine Empire had a nuanced impact on the institution of slavery. While some Christian leaders condemned certain forms of slavery, the overall impact of the institution was complex and slavery persisted for centuries. Number 3, the Roman Empire. Slavery was integral to the Roman economy and society. Romans enslaved people through conquest, capturing prisoners of war, and through birth and enslaved parents. Slaves performed various roles, from manual labor to serving to household staff. Human sacrifices, although it wasn't formal like the Mayan or the Aztec, but if you think about human sacrifices as a form of pitting humans against one another in bloody gladiator fights, it sort of counts as one, especially for their entertainment. See, Caligula was one of the Romans' most notorious and vicious tyrannical leaders, set off the tournaments and games as part of his yearly celebrations for his accession. For those who were gladiators were taught to how to kill and die stoically. Defeated who failed to obtain the so-called the mises or graces could choose a way of death. Slaves were considered legal property or res in Roman law and had no personal rights. They could be bought, sold, and inherited just like any other property. Some slaves were granted their freedom through the process called manumission, and this could be achieved only through the will of the deceased master purchased by the slave or the decision of the owner. Number 2, the Maya civilization. Human sacrifices was indeed part of the religious practices of the ancient Mayan civilization, which thrived around in Mesoamerica from around 2000 BCE to 1500 CE. Human sacrifices in Maya culture was linked to religious rituals and beliefs, and it played a significant role in their worldview. Human sacrifices was considered a religious ritual with deep spiritual significance. The Mayans believed in a complex pantheon of deities and offerings, including blood offerings, through sacrifices, as they were seen as a way to communicate with these gods, maintaining cosmic balances, and ensure the well-being of their communities. The Maya engage in elaborate bloodletting rituals where the individuals, often rulers or high-ranking individuals, would pierce their own bodies to extract blood. This blood was then also offered to to the gods. The act of bloodletting was a form of personal sacrifice and dedicating to the divine. In addition to self-sacrifice, captives from warfare or other sources were sometimes also used as sacrificial victims. These victims were often subjugated to ritual combat or other forms of ceremony before being sacrificed. The acts of sacrificing captives may have been associated with warfare, cosmological events, or other significant occasions. And finally, number 1, the Aztec civilization. The Aztec society was stratified with a hierarchical structure. At the top was the ruler and the nobility, followed by commoners, artisans, and slaves. Social status was often hereditary, and there were also very limitations on upward mobility. The Aztecs had a complex and polytheistic religion with a pantheon of gods. The god of sun and war held a central place in their religious belief. The Aztecs believed in the cyclical nature of the cosmos and conducted various rituals, including human sacrifices to maintain cosmic order. Human sacrifices was a significant aspect of the Aztec religious practices. The Aztecs believed that sacrificing humans, often captured in warfare, appeased the gods and maintained the balance of the universe. Rituals, including elaborate ceremonies and festivals, were dedicated to different deities. Despite the fall of their empire, the cultural and artistic achievements of the Aztecs left a lasting impact on Mexican and Mesoamerican heritage. Elements of the Aztec civilization, such as language, mythology, and artistic motifs, persist in modern Mexico.
In number 10, A Tale of Two Flowers. The legend begins with two women, Expin, a perceived sinner, and the other woman, Utzcolel, known as a good chaste woman. The wealthy townspeople look down at Expin and belittle her, as she was a woman of many love affairs. But they're ignorant of her good heart, as she cared for all those who were sick or poor and did so without expecting anything in return. Utzcolel, meanwhile, all on her fancy rich girl virgin high horse, actually had a crap personality and a cold heart, considering everyone inferior to her. One day, the misunderstood Expin goes missing. The judgmental visitors think she's off pleasing more men, until they realize a pungent flower scent is radiating from her house. Nosy, they go check what the perfume is and find Expin dead. Flowers had fought their way through the floorboards to grow around her. The villagers are aghast, but Utzcolel insists it's a demon's trick and assures them when she herself dies, it'll smell even sweeter. Psych. When Utzcolel dropped dead not long after, the villagers knew almost immediately because the stench radiating from her home was unbearable. Even flowers placed at her grave wilted and died the next day. As legend goes, Expin was reincarnated into the beautiful, sweet-smelling hedge flower. Utzcolel, however, that uppity B-word, got turned into a cactus flower that smelled like straight butt. Enraged that she was not as divine as she insisted she had been in life, Utzcolel called upon the spirits to make her a woman again, wanting to find love affairs as Expin had, assuming her power came from them. But Utzcolel's heart could only be evil, and therefore the spirits could only turn her into a half-woman, half-demonic spirit whose name I won't say. Now she wanders, wearing a white dress with large black eyes, and lurks near trees and hedges at night seeking out men. She'll have intercourse with them before taking the form of a poisonous snake and devouring them, or ripping their hearts from their chests before throwing them from cliffs. Pretty hardcore stuff, right? Well, get ready for number 9 then, the story of the man-goat. I'm going to only say its true name once for context, after that it's all abbreviations, baby. So, the Hue Shivo is a half-man that transforms himself at will and only during the nighttime, said to have glowing red eyes, thick black but patchy fur, and stands on 2 hooven animal legs. Despite this, it will have the torso and arms of a human and the head of a goat. If the HC is near, you will smell rotting flesh and feel a wave of cold air. If you do see an HC, you must look away. This creature can be created by a sorcerer, but its origin story is as follows. A handsome man lived in Merida, working hard, and he was well educated. However, he was poor, too poor to marry his beloved of a high social class. So he took out to the jungle, screaming his pain out, and in rage called upon the king of the underworld. The king appears, asking what he can provide this distraught man, who begs to sell his soul for a chance to be near the young woman, anything to be with her. The underworld king is like, shit, anything? Say less. And turn the man into a goat. Kinda. The young man is hysterical, saying this is not what he wanted, that he's neither man nor goat, but a monster. The underworld king laughs at him and says he did his part, gave the man what he wanted, and leaves. Since then, the HC runs through the night, killing farm animals in a rage for having been tricked into becoming half of one himself. Let's have a palate cleanser, something a little more tame for number 8. How about the farmer and the tree? Trees came to Earth with a mission. Some cure diseases, others provide wood for building shelter. Some produce food for many creatures. Humans knew this once, but as time went on, man became forgetful and began felling the forest with little regard for the tree's purposes and lives. There was one tree, once the happiest on Earth, that watched all this deforestation and destruction and became incredibly depressed, watching the destruction grow closer. Finally, the logging reached his part of the jungle and a farmer came, ready to put his axe through him. As the farmer swung, the tree found its voice and screamed out, "Not me," in fear. here. The farmer freezes alarmed and stares in awe at the great tree, asking if it's true that it had just spoken. We can, the tree replied. My name is Sirikote. Trees are the connection between the heavens, the earth, and the underworld, and we can talk in times of desperate need. Why didn't the other trees say anything when I came to cut them down? The farmer asked, confused. I don't mean any harm, but we need the land to grow food. Their mission was different, explained Sirikote. Their purpose was to gift their wood, but mine is not. You can plant your crops, but keep me around, and soon enough you will learn why. The farmer hesitant did as he was told. Patient, he tended to the plot and took care of the tree, and the tree grew tall and its foliage wide. And when the time came, it produced delicious fruits that fed the farmer's family and the animals that lived around. Number 7 is the story of the rabbit and the shoe. Long ago, animals lived together in harmony in a single mountain cave. Each animal had its own burrow: the coyote, the vulture, the deer, the lion, the snake, and so on. However, they were all tired of being tricked by the rabbit. There was nothing to do but call a meeting and decide together what to do, which they all agreed was to roll a boulder onto the rabbit and smash it to pieces. The lion says, you, turkey vulture, go watch for him to come out, and you, deer, go right after him. Since you can run as fast as Mayor Rabbit, you'll be able to catch up with him. Be on guard, all of you. Snake, you look to see when he comes out and we'll all pile on top of him. You, Snake, call him. The animals all agreed to the plan, keeping an eye on the rabbit hole where he was presumably asleep, but the rabbit wasn't and had heard their plot. So when they begin to call out, Rabbit, come on out, hurry, the rabbit's only response is, wait, I'm taking off my sandal. But hurry, said the snake. Wait for me there, I'm coming out, called back the rabbit. A moment passes. All right, said the rabbit, I'm coming out now, but please catch my other sandal, I beg you, so I may put it on outside. The other animals mutter amongst themselves and agree to catch his sandal and throw it over there. Then shout to the rabbit, all right, Mayor, throw out your sandal. The turkey vulture caught the sandal. He gave it to the deer and the deer threw it away. They were all too busy shouting at the rabbit's hole to realize it wasn't his sandal they had tossed away, but the rabbit himself. Finally, they send the snake into the hole in the raft, and the snake shouts, he's not here, he's not here. He's not here? Maybe it was him we threw, said the lion. Did you notice if it was his sandal you threw away? He asked the deer angrily. The animals begin to fight amongst themselves and begin to kill one another in a rage. Meanwhile, the rabbit from far away laughed at their bloodshed and the lie, and lives to be the trickster to this day. Number 6 is the story of the turtle baby. Long ago, there lived a very old woman, the oracle of an ancient Mayan world. But alas, the price for her rule was her fertility, and the woman craved motherhood in her old age. One day, the fertility god Chikan appears and tells her to visit her local synoids every day in search of a very large turtle egg. The oracle did, until one day she found the egg and brought it home, from which emerged a tiny green dwarf with bright copper hair. The oracle treasured the strange son and raised him with love until he was a man. But he was a curious one, and one day approached the cauldron his mother forbid him from. Inside was a gourd rattle, one so loud and powerful the oracle herself made a prophecy that should it be played, a new king was to be crowned, and guess who played it? The king, as does the whole kingdom, hears this rattle and is immediately enraged. Hunting down the son, he demands he face 3 tests. The first was to build a long white road, which the son does with the help of the gods. The second test was for the son to build the tallest building in the land overnight, otherwise be killed. The son, unsure of what to do, lays on the earth to contemplate, but when he wakes, it's on top of the largest pyramid in the land, built for him once again by the gods. For the third and final test, the king asked the son to place a hickory on his head and then break it with a spearhead. The dwarf passed this test because he had a hardened plate the oracle mother had wished upon his head as a babe. The king, however, did not have a hard head, and trying the challenge himself, dies. Thus the son is declared the king.
Alright, now on to number 5, which will be the new ancient city. We have not had a break from rocks since our first point, but guess what this city's name is? Utukumne. What's that mean in Mayan? Stone column. Don't think you escaped from the rocks. And speaking of escaping, that's exactly what this city did for a very long time. It went completely unnoticed until, thanks to the recent approval of airborne laser scanning on the central Mayan lowlands. After receiving LiDAR images showing man-made changes to the landscape, Ivan Sprach and his team thrashed their way through 60 kilometers of vegetation to reach this site. On the elevated terrain, they found several large buildings, including a number of pyramid-shaped ones measuring more than 15 meters. The cylindrical stone columns, which prompted the researchers to name the site Ulukumna, were probably entrances to rooms in the upper parts of the buildings. The team has also found altars, 3 plazas, and a ball court. Pottery unearthed at the site appears to indicate it was inhabited between 600 and 800 AD, a period known as Late Classic. But Sprach said the site probably underwent considerable changes between 800 and 1000 AD before falling victim to the collapse of the lowland Maya civilization in the 10th century. A mystery they're still hoping that that the rediscovery of this lost Maya city can help unwind. Was it environmental degradation, political unrest, warfare, or the decline of trade networks? Number 4 is coming, and he's a terror. The plight of gods, the destroyer of man. He is Smoking Frog, the Conqueror. It really is an unenviable job to be the decipherer of Mayan script, which utilized logograms, symbols, and glyphs that were near impossible to comprehend. And hallelujah, someone recently figured out that the little pictures were in fact words. So, the secrets of numerous surviving stelae and inscriptions from the many Maya ruins are finally coming into light, such as the events from the 14th of January 378 AD. That was the day when a foreign warlord, Seahenge, conquered Tikal in the most powerful of all Mayan cities. He had been dubbed Smoking Frog because his glyph looked like a smoking frog. Sia's name actually means fire is born, and he was an exceptionally powerful man who hailed from Teotihuacana. Oh, you know, just the most advanced Mesoamerican civilization that we know nothing about to this day, like their ethnicity, appearance, economics, or culture. Just poof, nothing in history. We do know it was a super city, however, which of course placed it in direct conflict with the equally powerful Maya civilization. So, from what historians can gather, the king of Teo set Fire is Born, who is either his brother or his right-hand man, off to go F up the Maya Empire. Several recently discovered stelae help scholars piece together the puzzle of Sia and the movements towards Tikal, mapping his path. Word must have traveled to Tikal of the invasion, and the forces met for a battle 16 miles from the city. This meant that an entirely new era was beginning in the metropolis, as all subsequently erected stelae would tell of Sia and his successors. This story truly is insane, but to dive into details would make it run long, so we'll stick a pin in that for now and move on to Unraveling the Red Queen, which is number 3. Archaeologists claim that only 10% of the ancient Maya city of Palenque has been explored so far. Among the ruins of Temple X111, where in 1994, Mexican archaeologist Arnaldo Gonzalez Cruz and his team made a legendary discovery, a tomb dating back to 600 or 700 AD. Excavations were being carried out at the temple to discover its construction sequence and the methods used in building it, with no prior knowledge of burials there. Then they stumble upon what's starting to seem like a big old tomb, attention focused to cleaning its area, and they discover a small blocked up door on a second level of the temple plaza. When they remove the block, it reveals a long corridor leading to one of the best preserved galleries discovered in Palenque to date. A few meters later, and there she was. The sarcophagus was a massive square of limestone, and inside was the remains of a noblewoman and other objects painted and powdered with red cinnabar, earning her the name the Red Queen. This is the richest known burial for a female Maya leader. She has a headdress of green stone and shell, a collar of shell and bead, a diadem of apple green jade loops, and then there's the funerary mask, with obsidian eyes conveying a striking sense of the presence of a queen. Inside the sarcophagus, archaeologists also discover a seashell with a small limestone figure in it, which is pretty cute. Oh, and then there's also some guy buried in the chamber too, but it's assumed he's a servant sent to the afterlife to serve her. He's just Ken though, so back to Barbie. Researchers found that she lived between 600 and 700 AD, and while her name is nowhere found in the tomb, Gonzalez Cruz believes that she was Tizaki Awa, the wife of Tikal and the grandmother of the last Mayan king. The remains of the Red Queen were returned to Palenque in June of 2012. She couldn't be reburied in her original tomb due to the high humidity, so she's reburied in a different one close to the location of her ancient home. In July of 2018, her funerary finery, including the burial jewelry and the death mask, were restored by archaeologists and historians and put on display in Mexico City. Speaking of the dead, number 2, the entrance to hell. When the meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs landed, it landed and hit the water near Hucanta. Sand there became porous, turning most of it into thick rock, but also giving it the ability to waste away with time and form sinkholes, aka cenoids, which people like to swim in on vacation, and Mayas believed were literal access to hell. So, Guillermo de Anda's team spent 5 years looking at 450-year-old historical records from the Spanish Inquisition to locate a series of sacred caves believed to be the Hell Passageway. The Spanish had been outraged that the Mayas continued practicing their old religion even after the persecution, so they used court trials to make them reveal the locations of the places where they performed ceremonies. That testimony leads de Anda to X on the map. Among de Anda's discoveries are broad, perfectly paved underground roads stretching 100 meters, a submerged temple, walled-off stone rooms, and the confusing crossroads of legends. In one chamber, it's impossible to move without slashing your skin, which is a representation of the Room of Knives. While de Anda has not yet encountered a specific jaguar chamber, jaguar bones have been found in at least one cave. Subterranean roads interrupted by deep pools of water may signify the rivers of blood and pus. Why go into the trouble of reproducing a hell? Well, perhaps it was a way to demonstrate power, Deanda said, or to give an idea of the terrors that they would meet en route to paradise. For now, Deanda's team is connecting tunnels and caves looking to uncover more. The most emotional for last, number 1, will be They Burned Books, aka the July 12, 1562 tragedy at Mani. What can only be called a literal villain to history is a monstrous man named Friar Diego de Landa, whose act of faith at the city of Mani, Yucatan is the most significant example of historic destruction or burning of the Maya books. Something he documented with excitement and pride in 1566 as he had removed the demons from indigenous hearts. Diego de Landa was among the first Franciscans to arrive in Yucatan. He took the time to learn the language and mirrored cultural behaviors to start earning the trust of the 19 independent chiefdoms. This is the first time he sees Maya texts, which he interprets as idolatry and messages from the devil. In fact, they're written records of the indigenous communities, histories, crops, laws, land, and legends. It was around this time he decided to use physicality to force conversion. He persisted in eradicating traditional indigenous beliefs through extreme violence and torment, and encouraged the other friars and lay people to do so as well. Indigenous Mayans began to take their own lives in response. Then comes the day. It's July 1562, and 2 boys exploring find a hidden cave in Mani where a shrine and altar had been set up. They snitch to the friar, who assembles a mob. People were burned in their thatched house, some flogged, many ran to take their own lives, and others were just killed. Then came the burning. The friars, under Diego's demands, raid the homes that still stand. Their written records are stolen, as are their clay idols that hold the ashes of their ancestors. And in a bonfire facing the monastery, all were burned. Everything. These wooden clay representations of their ancestors filled with ash, their family documents and history, all integral to the descendants' inheritance. The foreign priests understood the significance of what they called superstition and idolatry when they burned these idols. By destroying these articles, they literally ripped people's identities away from them, their standing in the community, and their title to their land and property. The ancestral traditions lost lie at the roots of this tragedy, as does the history we will never regain. Despite an estimated 90% of Mayas dying from disease, war, and forced labor during the 16th century Spanish conquest, I want to make it clear, Maya people and culture has never disappeared. An estimated 6 million Maya people still live in Guatemala, Belize, the West Honduras, Salvador, and southern Mexico alone.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the Olmec colossal heads. The Olmec civilization has often been referred to as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, and from somewhere between 1400 to 400 BC, the civilization rose in the Mexican Gulf Coast. Now, over 2 millennia later, in 1862, a farmer was digging that very same land that they once lived on, and he came across an extremely large stone head. From here, research continued, and this turned out to be one of 17 stone heads that are thought to have been portraits of the rulers at the time. The statues are all somewhere from 5 to 10 feet tall, and they are extremely heavy. Like heavier than a full-grown elephant. I guess that's how we're measuring weight now. Some use imperial, some use metric. I use elephants. The reason it is believed that these stone heads were made to model rulers of the time is because they all share similar features, but they are each made with different expressions, slightly different facial features, and different headdresses. While the first discovery of the stone head was close to the source of the basalt stone that was used to make them, most of the heads are like 60 miles away from there. So we have absolutely no idea how these ancient people were able to make these stones. We just know it wasn't an easy task by any means. In our number 9 spot today, we have the works of old men. The works of old men are structures that were first observed from the air by a British pilot in 1927, and they are located near the Azraq Oasis in Jordan. There are hundreds of these wheel-like structures that are each over 80 feet wide, some even as large as 200 feet. These huge structures have been dated back so far that they might just be the oldest man-made creations that we have ever found. While this is all amazing, we have absolutely no idea what they are or why they were created. The theories range from things like sun tracking to cemeteries to some sort of spiritual relevance, but we really just aren't sure. While things like this are incredible finds, and it's amazing that some of the first man-made things still exist on our Earth, it is so crazy how we have no idea what they are or how to use them, and unfortunately, especially because of the fact that it's been thousands and thousands of years, it's most likely that the mysteries surrounding them are totally lost with the past. In our number 8 spot today, we have the Siege of Masada. The Siege of Masada took place in 73 AD after the fall of Jerusalem, and it was one of the the final events of the First Jewish-Roman War. The event took place on and around a large hilltop in what is now current-day Israel, but here's where this ancient mega project comes in. The Romans began to build a massive earth ramp on the western side of the fortress of Masada. They managed to build it all while under the constant fire from those defending the area, and it was still just under 2,000 feet long, and it rose up 200 feet in the air. After building this ramp, they then managed to push a siege tower up the ramp. This ramp does mostly still exist, and basically what they ended up doing was like extending the size of the mountain that Masada was built on. It is absolutely insane that they did all of this just to capture people. All of that for like 960 people. Imagine if we had ancient Romans now. Suddenly all of our cities would be actually accessible. Ramps for everyone. In our number 7 spot today we have Stonehenge. Perhaps the most famous of all of the monuments on this list, this prehistoric monument is located in England, and it is a set of stones that are oriented towards the sunrise on the summer solstice. This stone monument is thought to have been created somewhere from 3000 to 2000 BC, and it truly is one of the most famous landmarks ever. Stonehenge is thought to have been an ancient burial ground right from early in its creation for somewhere around 500 years. There are many theories surrounding this incredible monument regarding who could have created it, as experts just aren't quite sure. Since this was from a time before we had written records, we may just never know. Maybe this one is just destined to stay a mystery. In our number 6 spot today we have the Yonaguni Monument. Just off of the coast of Yonaguni, Japan, there is a diving location that was first discovered in 1986 by a diver. He noticed some strange sort of formation that was located on the seabed that looked as if it could be some sort of structure, so he swam down to go and investigate. When he went down and didn't find any more answers to his questions, he of course had to spill the tea on what he had stumbled upon. When researchers heard about this, they ended up diving down to check out what this formation could be, and thus the Yonaguni Monument was officially considered discovered. This monument, which kind of resembles stairs made for giants, is made of sandstone and limestone, but there's one super mysterious thing about it. Experts cannot agree on the origins of this thing. Some people believe it was a naturally occurring formation, while others swear that it was man-made. The Yonaguni Monument is at least 10,000 years old, so at the end of the day, anyone's guess is as good as mine.